Hi everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres. And this afternoon, I'm taking a look at what we're going to plant for the fall and winter gardens. Now I have to admit, it's a bit of a challenge to want to think about working in the garden right now. I'm actually taking a quick break from working in the kitchen. Probably have a little bit of tomato sauce on my shirt here. And it's hard when you're sort of knee-deep in summer vegetables to want to think about getting knee-deep in winter vegetables. But the reality is, our winter vegetables are not the kind of things that you preserve very much. We could make sauerkraut out of cabbage and things like that, but mostly what we do is plant things during the winter that we can eat fresh. And most of those things are brassicas. Now, if you've been following along with us, you know that we have, let me keep track here, you know that we have a greenhouse, and that last year we tried very hard to keep our tomatoes alive in the greenhouse as long as we could. Unfortunately, we had a ridiculously early frost last year, and then we had some technology fails, and it was just one thing after another. No clue what's going to happen this year. We're in much better shape in terms of having a heater. Are we going to try and keep everything alive all winter? Probably not unless we have an incredibly mild winter. But what I have to do is I have to think in terms of, we have tomatoes and peppers. Those are both very frost sensitive. We have pak choi. They can stand being frozen solid practically and they'll be fine. We have some lettuce. They'll tolerate the cold very well too, especially the Salanova. The pumpkins and cucumbers and watermelons, they'll all freeze. But it's going to be an interesting game to see, and that's the way I have to kind of look at it, this fall, as to how early the frost comes and how well we can keep it off of things. Out in the main garden, the only thing I'll be planting out there is probably some brassicas. So my current plan is to plant cabbage in the yard, simply because it takes so much room. One of the problems we had last winter was having enough room in the greenhouse for the cabbage. Now we have a lot more pots to plant in this winter, so I think we're going to be in a lot better shape. But we're still sort of playing mind games in terms of what we're going to try that's normally summer veggies and what we're going to try this winter. For sure we're going to plant cabbage, pak choi, chum soy. I always get that backwards. Anyway, it's Asian greens. It has the delightful name of something like Improved 47 or something like that. I mean, it's one of those rolls right off the tongue sort of things. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through the list that I have here that I got from Johnny's. Now, this is a seed starting date calculator. And what you do is you go to the Johnny Select Seeds website and you pop in your spring frost-free date. And it will give you the number of weeks to start seeds before you're going to set them out, and then when you would normally set them out. Now, this is really designed for the spring, but it still gives you the right number of weeks to start seeds before setting out, and then a clue, shall we say, as to how long some of the stuff will be take to get ready to put out in the garden, or in the greenhouse for that matter. So I have that. I also have a vegetable planting guide and recommending planting dates from the Arizona Master Gardener Manual. It's okay. They take into consideration regions based on elevation. That helps a lot. I have a list of, actually two lists, of plants. I have plants that I want to start and plants that I want to direct seed. Unfortunately, we're in that awkward time frame when our summer crops are still mostly doing really well, too well to pull out. We have one section of tomatoes that, I don't know, they may go in the next couple of weeks. They're not really doing much. They're not spectacular tomatoes to start with. They were an experiment. That's our Alaskan fancies. They're a determinate plant, so they're kind of winding down anyway. But I may just rip those suckers out. Actually, well, I should contact one of my girlfriends and see if she likes fried green tomatoes, because Henry and I can't eat fried green tomatoes. And if she does, she might enjoy having some green tomatoes that she could make fried green tomatoes with. And that would solve our problem, because I really hate to have things go to waste, but neither of us can eat fried green tomatoes, so if we have to pull any plants with green tomatoes on them, the problem with that is we tend to leave stuff in longer than we should. Among the plants that I want to start inside ahead of time is beets, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, kohlrabi, leeks, lettuce, onions, and pak choi. Now, most of those are brassicas. They're in the cabbage family. Beets are in the beet family, obviously. As is Swiss chard, which I will put some in too. It's not on there. That's something I like. I actually forgot to put on this list. Bad me. We also have the option of doing some English peas. We actually have a package of peas. We might do some leeks. We're going to experiment with Brussels sprouts this fall. We've never grown Brussels sprouts before. We've experimented just on a tiny, tiny scale with some mini broccoli plants. And despite our gosh awful summer weather here, we actually have managed to get a couple of small florets off of the broccoli. And the mini broccolis don't do a big centerpiece and then some scragglies on the thing. They do all little ones. But that's okay. You know, it's something you didn't have to go to the grocery store for. That's my view on that. So I do need to get some things started. Almost everything's brassica, and it sort of cracks me up because I forget how many things that we like are brassicas. We were amazed last year to discover how well we could do with lettuce here. And even when the greenhouse got down incredibly low and it looked like everything had frozen to death, because everything was frozen in the morning when we went in there, by noon everything would be defrosted and just fine. So it was kind of strange. And that's when I really started to discover how versatile some particular types of lettuce are, most notably Salanovas. Salanova is a patented plant available only through Johnny Select Seeds, and we happened upon it because of several channels which had recommended it for market gardeners. And they made it sound like it was the best thing since sliced bread. It's not foolproof, but it is pretty amazing. So we definitely will be growing that again, and I already have my seeds on most of these things. We've been collecting a few extra seeds over the course of the summer, anticipating not being able to get them this fall because we had trouble getting some of our spring seeds. So this is the time of year when you need to look at when you're going to have your first freeze and what things might survive that first freeze. For instance, we are growing ground cherries, and they are in the nightshade family along with peppers and tomatoes and tomatillos and eggplants. Those are the most commonly planted nightshades. Everything there is pretty sensitive to frost. Tomatillo may have a little bit of resistance to frost. But tomatoes, oh man, you know when you've had your first frost, they look like they've been beat with a stick. And if the tomato even gets a little bit of frost on the plant, it's just, it's mushy and it's toast. Sometimes you can keep them going for a while longer, but not so hot in the long run. But we are growing ground cherries, which actually I have been told by multiple sources, until things freeze to death, they will keep producing. So, okay, I'm good with that. And it's funny because they are a nightshade. So we'll see, because obviously you never know until you try it. But we're hoping those will manage to stay alive in the garden, and we're also hoping that there will be fewer bugs, because we have been pretty brutalized by the bugs this summertime. And I've learned that cucumber beetles like the ground cherries better than they like the cucumbers, which I suppose has some advantages for the cucumbers, but it really was pretty brutal for the ground cherries. And I know that next year I need to be prepared to spray from square one. And I'm going to be, because Henry and I are in love with ground cherries. Beets, you can transplant, and I haven't in the past in general. I may or may not this fall, but all these other brassicas I'm definitely going to be transplanting. So I need to decide where I'm going to set up. I have a sneaky suspicion it's going to be the corner of the dining room. Because it's just easier. The house gets hot, but it does not normally get 120 degrees, which it can get that hot in the greenhouse. Now, at this time of year, with the new technology that we have in there, we're able to control it, but it can still get up to 95 during the day. I think the plants will be happier as they get started in the dining room. So that'll probably be the usual corner of the dining room thing. So it's time for everybody to start thinking about what they're going to do. It's almost a little hard for me this fall because it's been such a rough summer. I didn't grow up in a household that gardened in the wintertime. The wintertime was time when you took time off. You knitted and crocheted and sewed. Not that you didn't do those things in the summertime, but if you were doing bigger projects, this thought of having yarn in your lap when it's 95 degrees is just, ooh, no. So we caught up on a lot of the crafty things in the wintertime. And I also had a workshop in the basement for playing with wood and sawdust and things. So I was accustomed to sort of taking the winter off. And the last few winters here is the first time really that I'm growing in the wintertime. Did it here initially as sort of a lark to see if I could keep some spinach alive, and discovered that the spinach really, really likes the wintertime here. There's a thing called the Persephone period, and the term was coined by Eliot Coleman, well known for a lot of the books he's written on using hoop houses and other type of greenhouse environments to extend your winter season. He's from Maine, and he's collected together information from a lot of the locals in Maine and his own research, and put together a couple of decent books on how to extend the season. The Persephone period is basically the time frame when there's just not enough light. And where you are in terms of latitude, okay, when you think of the world, a ladder laying on the side of the world gives you latitude. So where on the rungs of the ladder you are, from going from the equator up, determines how much sunlight you get at various types of the year. At certain times of the year, for us it's like, I think it's like November or December. I think it's December something through, I'll check. I've got it written down in my notes. It's not a really long time frame. I want to say it's the end of November or the beginning of December through like mid-January, I think it is the Persephone period. There's so little light relative to the plants that while we may be perfectly happy, the plants just don't grow much. So what you try and do is you try and get everything planted before that time frame, so that it can just kind of coast, and then the minute the days get a little teeny bit longer, zoom, it takes off again. You can figure out how many hours of sunlight you have where you live. Figure that out so you know if you want to plant this winter when things are going to really come to a grinding halt. Because as soon as you start getting more sun again, which is usually anywhere from January to February or March, depending on how far north you are, your plants are going to kick in. And if you're ready with all that stuff planted, you'll get a reward for that. So take a look at where you live in terms of how many hours of sunlight you have, How cold does it get? Uncovered cabbages can survive probably 28-degree weather at least, depending on the variety. And so can a bunch of other things in the cabbage family. They may not look great for a day or two, but they'll come back. Check it out, figure out what you can grow, and comment below to let us know if you have questions about what kind of things you might be able to grow where you are. There's some places in the United States that never freeze solid. There's some places that get a frost once in a while, so you might just be able to use some sort of a row cover to cover things up. If it's just going to be a 1 or 2 night thing, you could throw quilts on things if you have to. I've done that before. So think about what you might be able to grow this winter. You know, you may live someplace really cold, but even in some of the pretty far north places, you can overwinter under a row cover. Take a look at it. See what if there's something you want to do during the wintertime. And if not, you can do what I used to do during the wintertime. I really looked forward to those catalogs coming in. And I would plan all winter what I was going to do in the spring. So, until next time, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because we have lots and lots going on. I'll be sowing a bunch of seeds, some in the garden, some in an assortment of planting scenarios. And you'll get to see how we decide to do it this fall. I'll be glad to share the varieties that I use. And if you have any questions, please ask, because I will try and answer them. We certainly don't know everything, but we have been gardening for a long time between the two of us. And we do have a few clues. So until next time, bye.